real quick, before we get to Michael Bruntz and Huskers247, you got to chat with Will Bolt, and season is starting tomorrow. What were just your impressions of Will Bolt and his feelings going into the season as everything gets underway, like it does every year outside of Lincoln?
I think they're embracing the ceiling. I think there's that cool confidence that Will has. I just think that, gosh, you almost go back to the 2021 season when they were in the pod system and they won the Big Ten because those were the only games that they could play. There was a good mix of veterans, super seniors, but also some exciting young talent, Bryce and Max, to name a few there too. But between 21 and this year, there was a lot of influx with that roster. There was a lot of guys coming in that had college baseball experience, but hadn't necessarily played with one another. And I think this is the year where you had so many guys come back where very similar again. You've got some exciting young players that could impact right away, but also this veteran group, this core group where you're going to be using these next couple of weekends to find out where you're going to put these guys because you have so many options and only 9 spots to put on a lineup card right now. So I think that they're excited about how it's all going to work out. But I know that Will, more than anything, is extremely happy with the way everyone has embraced that culture. He spoke at the press conference, and I thought this was just a great example of that, of Jalen Worthley is a guy that has starter stuff, and he's evolved into that where he could probably go out, get the ball right away, give you 6 innings, and he's going to be pretty special. I'm sure he and Drew Christo want that role, and they could have that role at some point, barring injuries or anything like that were to take place. You hope that isn't the case. But these guys also have now seen where those roles that they have in long relief in the bullpen have been so impactful and have so much place for the success that this team hopes that they have, that I think for them to embrace that and say, hey, I know that that's something that is going to be a big part of this staff. Because if you're thinking about this, the external expectations and internal expectations of this team, the one thing about fulfilling those expectations that I could say on day one that is going to get them there, that at least right now they're closest to getting there, is that staff. Is from their rotation to the bullpen to a potential Luke Broderick as closer. That to me puts them there. So I think Will, more than anything, is extremely comfortable with how everybody's embraced that culture and has really embraced the roles that they are at least forecasted to have going into this weekend.
External expectations, preseason number 2 in the Big Ten Conference, 4 games over the next 4 days in Arizona. It's beginning tomorrow, UC Irvine, then number 16 Vanderbilt, San Diego State, and Grand Canyon. And a man who knows a little bit about every one of those teams is Michael Bruntz, Husker247. Bruntsy, nice to have you on Husker Max today. How's it going?
Not bad. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, straight to the A's hat as we get into baseball talk.
I missed the memo. I didn't have the Nebraska hat. You guys didn't clue me in on the text message, I guess. I feel like an idiot.
We've done 4 shows together, and we're already coordinating what we're wearing, so it happens quick around here.
Brunsey, that's your brand too. The green and gold, man. That is your brand. So you got to roll with that.
That's true.
We got to hear from Will Bolt and a couple of players earlier this week. Bruntz, as you're looking at this team going into the season, what are just your thoughts on their confident level and where they fit into this expanded Big Ten, not to 18, just to 17 teams?
Yeah, I thought Nick, handled it pretty well there. I mean, I think it's a confident team. It's a veteran team. Basically the entire lineup from last year's back, minus Josh Caron and Cole Evans. And, I think that's a good place to start. I mean, I don't envy Will Bolt having to write a lineup card every day. You basically have 5 outfielders that could comfortably play for you at any moment. Across the infield, it's the same guys as last year. You've got Case Sanderson, who I think probably not enough people are talking about coming into the season. And, the pitching staff, you're going to have guys in new roles, but I think at least now, as we sit here in February 13th, that there's appears to be on paper more depth than what they've had and more quality depth than what they've had the last few years. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, they've scheduled aggressively, and I think that sometimes when you do that, That's a bit of a reflection of what you think about your team. And you would probably not go running into this schedule if you did not have a veteran group returning and guys that you can count on right away when the season gets rolling.
Bruntz, I was asked this question last night, and I want to get your answer on it as well. Out of the arms that you will see, whether it's rotation, bullpen, closer, who are you looking forward to seeing the most this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, of the guys that we've kind of gotten to see, I want to see what Tyner Horn as a sophomore looks like. I saw him throw in the Red-White series, and he looked like a completely different pitcher than what we saw last spring. The fastball's playing up. It's low to mid 90s consistently. You got to remember, this is a kid that did not give up an earned run as a senior in high school. He had a 0.00 ERA, and he got hit around last year. And I think there's probably an adjustment period that he had to go through. And, he's in that Saturday role. I think he's probably got Friday stuff if they needed to go that route. But, he's a big piece, and his development's a big piece of kind of, solidifying that weekend rotation. Beyond that, I mean, you're going to see some new arms as well. Carson Yasa is going to throw this weekend, 6'7", 235 with a mid-90s fastball. That's not bad. And there's been some chatter that guys like Grant Clevenger, who wasn't really a factor last year, is going to be potentially a high leverage left-handed arm out of the bullpen. So they've got some options there, and that's kind of exciting. I mean, I think when you have guys with plus stuff, I mean, that's going to be what will allow Nebraska to really be competitive these first 3 weekends.
When you talk about the confidence coming into this season, and last year it didn't result in hosting a regional or getting out of a regional, but the run that this team went on in Omaha in the Big Ten tournament and getting contributions from all kinds of different arms, from all kinds of different bats as well, bringing that into this season, Bruntz, when you look at it, who's kind of maybe that underdog confident guy that if their backs are against it, Nebraska might turn to this guy, whether it's on the mound or a bat, to get in there and get it done?
Well, I mean, I think on the mound, I think that they're the two guys that are kind of the glue for this staff. I think it's Drew Christo, and I think it's Jalen Worthley. Mm-hmm. Nick's right that Worthley's got the type of ability where he could go in and start on the weekend right now if Nebraska needed him to. But in college baseball, the guys that are like gold are the guys that are high leverage type pitchers who can come in tough situations, or they can give you multiple innings across a relief appearance. Those guys are huge, and that's what they're going to ask of Christo and Worthley. Worthley especially, I think they're going to try to get multiple appearances out of him on a weekend if they can. And so I think that's the backbone of your staff right there, and guys that if you're going to be running deep into Big Ten tournament or deep into the NCAA tournament, those are the guys that have to click for you. So I think that's who I look at. I also think lineup wise, it's hard to pick one. I mean, you've got obviously Gabe Swanson last year and the heater that he was on. If he can kind of, put it together over a full year, that lineup looks completely different. But, for me there, I would go with Caden Brumbaugh. I mean, I think he's going to be your leadoff guy. He had the shoulder issues last year, which he's past now, knock on wood there. But, he's a spark plug at the top of that lineup. And if he can get on base, they've got a lot of bats in that lineup that can come in and drive in runs. So I think he's going to be an important piece at second base. And I kind of look at those types of guys that are going to be really key for this team.
Bruntz, if I were to tell you that Dylan Carey finishes with a Bryce Matthews type of season, maybe not the stolen bases necessarily, but is a 20-plus home run guy in 2025, you would think what?
He figured out how to hit a curveball. a breaking pitch. And I mean, that's the key for him, right? Like he
Right.
punishes fastballs, and his big bugaboo has been handling breaking pitches. And they've got him doing some different stuff now. He's timing up things a little bit differently, doing a toe tap, which you got to love the toe tap. And the thing that's important with him, I mean, I think is just kind of keeping him right mentally. I think he's a kid that, when things go well, he does well. I think he gets hard on himself a little bit when things don't. And he hit 300 in the Cape last year. The power numbers haven't been there yet, but I mean, that's kind of the next piece for him is if he can start hitting for home runs. If you got, what did you say? Did you say 20 home runs? 20. If you got 20 home runs out of Dylan Carey, look out. That's going to be, that'd be a heck of a story. But I do think that he finally is at a place where there's less pressure on him too in the lineup. I feel like there's more depth there, so he doesn't have to be that kind of centerpiece in the lineup because it feels like years ago. I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere, was hitting leadoff for a while or cleanup, like that was ages ago. But he's a guy that could definitely give Nebraska a little bit more if he gets on a tear.
Softball opened their season last week with a couple of ranked opponents, ended up going 3-2. Nebraska gets a ranked opponent on game 2 of the weekend, taking on number 16 Vanderbilt. Nebraska ranked themselves. What are you looking for most for this team in this opening weekend of technically 4 games, even though 3 of them are in that MLB Desert Invitational?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking for competitiveness across the board. I mean, it's going to be, you're facing 3 really good teams right out of the gates, 3 teams that have been playing outside for a number of weeks. And, you want to see the guys that you can count on. I mean, I think Nebraska, as much as they kind of get an idea in practices of how this kind of could look, you don't really know until you get the lights on and you're in tight games. I mean, Darren Erstad always told that story about Chad Linsman, where that they go out and check on him because they think he hurt his arm because the velocity dropped so much and he was just nervous. That happens the first couple weekends of a season. So you hope Nebraska's past that. You want to see kind of similar to what they did last year. I mean, they faced a really good lineup of teams right out of the gates last year and were really competitive, and I think kind of gained some confidence out of that. So I think that's more what you're looking to see. And certainly, it's an aggressive schedule this year that's been well documented, but if you're able to get some of these early season wins, I mean, these are the types of games that when you get to April and May are still going to be sticking with you and looking pretty good on that resume. So it's, challenging, but also there's a ton of opportunity there.
I did want to ask you about 2 guys in particular when we think about newcomers, but do have some college baseball games and some successful games under their belt too. And what Hogan Heligzo will be replacing with Josh Caron, the former Creighton catcher, but also Cale Frost, the reigning Summit League MVP, Summit League Player of the Year. What you expect given the different competition that both of these guys are going to be facing?
Yeah, Hogan's going to be a really important piece of this because, you're replacing Caron. You're not expecting him to be Josh Caron at the plate. That's not what he's going to be. But you want somebody that can manage a pitching staff, that can play good defense, that can just be dependable. I mean, I think when you kind of look at what Nebraska has at catcher, you had a couple guys behind Hogan Heligzo have off-season surgery that are kind of still coming back from that. Like Will Jeske might be an option at catcher. He's a guy that, for whatever reason, the guy just is able to put the ball in play when he has to, which I think that's helpful. But you're just going to need Hogan Heligzo to really kind of just manage that staff. And, Cale Frost, he's hit at every level. We saw him last year play at Nebraska, the 21 home runs, that catches your attention. 59 or 60 RBIs, something like that. The one good thing is I don't know that there's a ton of pressure on him because, you could have some nights where he's the DH. You could have some nights where Butenbach's in right field. They can move guys around a little bit. And, the lineup this year will have more power from the left side more so than they've had, in the last 5-6 years. So he's a big piece of that. And, they just kind of need him to play his game. I mean, I don't know that they really need him to do much of what he hasn't already done. He just needs to do it at a higher level.
I want to get your thoughts real quick. Big picture. Nebraska hasn't been out of a regional in 20 years now. And for Will Bolt, he's got a conference regular season championship. He's got a conference tournament championship, a couple of regional appearances. How big of a year is this for Will Bolt and what he's been building here in Lincoln?
Yeah, I mean, it's big. I mean, I think, you have the makings of a roster where, you're certainly going to be in that regional conversation. They've been in the hosting conversation, 2 of the last 4 years. I mean, They've been kind of on the doorstep, and it's a difference of 3 or 4 games.
Rutgers.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the potential's there. I mean, I think you're always going to be challenged a little bit, just being in the Big Ten. Maybe, with the addition of Oregon, you're not going to have the RPI suck that some of the league has been in the past. So we'll see. You need USC and UCLA to kind of pick up from where they've been the last few years. So to kind of lift the league. But, this is a roster that they've been able to keep together. They didn't have a lot of defections. They added a couple good pieces to it. And I think you are able to build on what you did in year 1 under Rob Childress last year. So it's, the potential's there. I think that's what you can say. I mean, in the big picture, should they be hosting? I don't know. That's a really, really tough road for a Northern team to do. That's the goal. We'll see if they can do it. But that this feels like a team that has fewer question marks. I heard Nick say kind of similar to 21 in some ways in that group. I definitely think there's some similarities there.
But imagine this, they are hosting, and at that time in the softball calendar, it would be super regionals. Nebraska softball hosting a super regional at the same weekend. Nebraska baseball hosting a regional for the first time in forever. That's going to be fun for Lincoln.
You would take that problem, I think.
The local economy would really like that.
I saw Jameel Weeks get mentioned on Twitter the other day, and I was thinking back to that 06 regional where Nebraska didn't even get to play Miami. So maybe we need baseball in May and June again in Lincoln. That'd be okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Michael Bruntz, Husker247. Appreciate all the info. We'll talk probably a few more times as the season rolls on.
Sounds good, guys. Have a good one.
See you, Bruntz.
There you go. All right. So, I'm ready for baseball. I know you're ready for baseball. Take me through what the weekend looks like for you with a little bit of an Arizona trip.
So we'll arrive late afternoon Arizona time. So a chance to watch some hoops tonight. I'm sure Ben, myself, probably Jared will get together, watch a little basketball, and then usually that first night it's in bed early, a little final prep work.
Nervous for opening day type of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I hope to wake up in the morning, get a little bit of a run in, and then a little bit of an earlier start for tomorrow. And then what's kind of nice, we got the whole evening and really a lot of Saturday. I think we're going to try to golf on Saturday as well. So before we have the big Vanderbilt game too. So especially with the snow happening yesterday, this feels like a very appropriate time to get out to the Valley of the Sun. But I'm obviously looking forward to being back in the booth with not only Ben, who is a good friend, but also David Gustafson. But this team, I think there's a lot of reason not only for the internal optimism, but the external optimism about what this team can do too. And I'm just excited to see what it looks like here in these next few games and how Will's able to piece it together. But we always have a good time on the road. We do it responsibly, but we always make sure we have a good time. And since it's been 2 years since Ben and I have been on the road, so we'll do our best and not try to make up for lost time when it comes to the extracurriculars.
And I know there was, and you've echoed this a lot, but last year actually was when we found out of the cancer diagnosis for Greg Sharp, and then all of the magic that happened with finally putting the GS Strong on the Caps and getting a no-hitter immediately after that in the Big Ten tournament run. I'm sure you guys will mention Greg a couple of times, but we'll mention again right here, continuing to pray for Greg as he goes through this fight now into the spring.
Yeah, with all of the excitement and packing and getting ready to hop on the plane and get ready for the season, you're absolutely right that everything that we're doing from a routine standpoint and getting ready for the broadcast, getting ready for the season, all of it comes with all of our thoughts with Greg and obviously with his family and his daughter on the verge of getting married as well. There's so many things going on that we'll be doing the broadcast with a heavy heart, and we're thinking of him. We're hoping that we always used to do this before, where we'd have a conversation. If Greg wasn't with us on the broadcast, immediately after the first game, we'd get into our rental car and we would call Greg and we would just talk about the game, whether it was a good outcome or a bad outcome. So we're hoping to continue tradition and be able to talk to our good friend about every moment of this weekend.